I'm Dr. Michael Latola.
And I'm Megan Strong.
No room. Joseph and Mary once heard that in the Bible, and today one of our doctors is going to hear that.
And what the puck? Hockey players turned dentists? We'll tell you all about it.
And our biggest fan, look at this license plate that I spotted in Newport Beach this weekend. Hey, whoever you are, identify yourself. This car was parked right by the ocean, and it says, I heart Chairside. Oh, that could be Seaside. Damn it. Oh, well. That and more on today's Chairside Live. Hey now, hello and welcome to episode 73 of Chairside Live. Megan, without coordinating it at all, you and I are both wearing black and white. I'm wearing, I think you're wearing black dots on a white top, and I might be. It's kind of a zebra thing, but I feel like I've got white dots on a black jacket, but I can't tell.
Houndstooth, I love houndstooth, perfect for fall.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yep.
I just reached in and grabbed it out of the closet.
Well,
it was dark. And my eyes were attracted to it. But it looks like we're, I don't know, going somewhere afterwards. Like we were going to lunch afterwards.
Do you normally dress up like the people that you go to lunch with?
No, not often. I can't do much. I'll try to match. When we get there, I'll try to match what they're ordering. I don't want to eat a lot less or a lot more. I want to make them feel comfortable. I'll chew the same amount of times. I'll watch if they're chewing their food 20 times.
Seems rather calculated.
I'll try to match it. Well, I just want people to be comfortable.
Okay.
Unlike this opening.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've got an interesting episode for you today. We've got a great case of the week. In fact, this case of the week can be summed up in 2 words, and those words are no room. And I remember when I was growing up, when I was a mere lad about your age, no nukes was like the big sign that you would see everywhere during the middle of the Cold War. And as I was walking through, I saw this case where a big sticker on it that said no room. And I wanted to know what that meant. So I took a closer look at the case to see what was going on. In fact, why don't you take a look at it with me now? I was walking through the Crown and Bridge Department the other day and saw a case that had a sticker on it that says no room. And that, kind of like no room at the hotel, it means no room. But we'll take a look and I'll show you exactly what no room means. Here's the impression that the doctor sent in. Okay, so the patient was biting all the way together. We can definitely see through the tray. Patient was in maximum intercuspation. Wow, that wisdom tooth is really close to the back of that tray. But they did get together all the way, so that must not be fully erupted. And then here is the impression of the preparation. And we have a second molar, lower second molar. We have a pull right there, it looks like. So if I take a look right along here, that pull, I've noticed in my impressions when I see something like that, it's usually pretty typically caused by fluid trying to escape an area. And then a little bubble over there, away from the margin, so probably not a huge deal. That could probably be filled in a little bit. In fact, let's look at a solid model for this. There's that, what looks to be that pull as we spin this around on the lingual. Looks like that can be probably cleaned off pretty easily. Boy, this is life on a lower second molar, isn't it? We're having to over-taper the distal because the head of the handpiece is hitting the teeth across from it. And then to not whack this tooth, we end up coming back here and making sure that we're able to clear the burr away from that tooth. And we get that kind of thing. You can see how the tooth was probably sitting in there as the mandible starts to turn upwards. And the tooth is kind of at an angle. And so that's, certainly not probably going to win any awards for a prep, but all things considered, and we don't know the patient, it's certainly doable. And you can see pretty clearly that we can identify most of the margin except for right there, but it looks to be a supragingival margin, even though there might have been a little fluid from the patient's tongue movement or something like that. When we look at the mounted model, this is about the angle that we're able to see, right, in dentistry. I mean, if we've got the patient's cheek and we're trying to pull it away and we look in here, and it's very easy to see that we have enough room here between the opposing tooth and the buccal cusp. And that looks good. And we say, all right, we're done. We've reduced enough. The doctor did prescribe a Brux or Crown. Really good choice for a lower second molar if the patient won't accept gold. And so you look at it and go, yep, plenty of room. All right, let's go ahead and send it in. And then at the lab, of course, we're able to pour it up and see a view that the dentist couldn't see. And that is from the lingual. And you can see that we have less than 0.5 millimeter of room there between that opposing tooth and that lingual cusp. And it's always the lingual cusp. The lingual cusp hanging down on the upper and the lingual cusp on the lower that is under-reduced, because we simply can't see that from any view in dentistry until we strip the cheeks and the soft tissue away. I mean, here you look at it now and you go, oh, that's clear as a bell. But you never get that view when the patient has their cheek still attached to their face. There's no way to be able to see that. And so it's a difficult thing. And so when a technician asks me, why would a dentist do that? I say, you've never actually tried to visually see this yourself, have you? So last week we were doing a lower second molar and we brought 10 technicians into the room, and they all had a chance to sit down and take the intraoral mirror and pull the patient's cheek away and try to see over there as it gets flooded with saliva and shadows, and they were able to see that you aren't able to see that. And so they have a little more empathy for us now. But my point has always remained the same. I mean, why even take the chance that this is going to happen? You know, as you are probably familiar, on my BUR kit, we have certain depth cutters that will make sure that we have reduced enough. And the most conservative one we have is this 0.6 millimeter one for BUR restorations. And again, 0.6 millimeters is not a ton of reduction. I mean, look at that. In fact, let me compare that for you to what every company and manufacturer has asked for PFMs for the last couple decades, and that's been the 2 millimeter depth cut. Even that doesn't look like a ton, of course. When you put it on a tooth, it looks differently, but that 0.6 millimeter one, it's really simple. If we're doing a BUR crown on, say, this second molar, we can take the 0.6 millimeter depth cut, and especially on the lingual cusp tips, I'm going to hold it at a 90-degree angle, so right above it, and here, boom, I'm going to drop this in 0.6 millimeters, and here, boom, down 0.6 millimeters. It's a self-limiting depth cut because it won't go any deeper than that shoulder right there, so you just kind of push it into place. In fact, for BUR, you could put a couple ones on the axial. You can put one on the buccal too if you want. Certainly put one in the central groove. We definitely need one there. And then I'm just going to take my 856-025 BUR, or maybe my 379 football BUR. Now just whatever fits is what I'm going to go back here with. If you really wanted to play it safe, or if you're doing something else like Emax, we would use a 1.5 millimeter depth cutter. And it's simple. We're just going to take this and put a couple 1.5 millimeter holes on the top of the tooth, and then we're going to reduce that until we don't see the holes anymore. And it's simple. I mean, how much, if you're doing a central incisor, I get it. You can see it directly. There's no cheek in the way. That's fine. But if we're doing a lower second molar, why not put a couple holes in the lingual cusp and the central groove to make sure we have reduced enough? It just avoids this kind of thing, because right now, the choices are we got to adjust the opposing and mark it in black and have the dentist do the same, and that's fine. It's not a big deal. But then if the crown is still a little high in occlusion when he puts it in, if the doctor adjusts this, he could make that BUR crown too thin, and it would be one of the very few single unit BUR crowns that would actually fracture. It's just so much easier to put holes in the top of the tooth, and I get kind of impatient about it, because it's not like I'm asking you to pick up a 40-pound weight and run around the back with it, run around the block with it on your back. It's just a matter of putting a couple holes here, and then there's no guessing. You almost don't even have to pull the cheek away and look. You certainly don't have to put bite registration or wax here and have the patient bite together and try to interpolate how much space you have. So even if you want to skip all the anterior teeth, when it comes especially to first and second molars, I just think there's no better way to do this than put a couple of known depth cuts into the occlusal surface of the tooth. And if you're doing Emax, for example, use your 1.5 millimeter depth cutter, put some holes in here, the central groove, 2 there, 1 in each lingual cusp, the buccal if you want to, and then just reduce following the contours of the original tooth, and reduce until you don't see those holes anymore, and you're guaranteed of having enough reduction. A guarantee is a great thing, especially when it comes to occlusal reduction, and especially when it comes to saving yourself a phone call from our laboratory or having to adjust the patient's opposing enamel.
Now let's go to a segment we call Viewer Mail. This week's viewer mail comes to us from Dr. Robert Chang, and he writes, "Hello, Dr. Datola. I have some questions regarding seeding BUR crowns. Number 1, what's the frequency of the BUR crowns coming off without cleaning with IvoClean and applying primers? I'm starting to get worried about BUR crowns debonding. Number 2, does Reliax Luting Plus cement need the recommended primers such as Z Prime Plus or Monobond Plus? Then lastly, number 3, Can I use silane instead of the recommended primers for cementing Bruxer crowns? If silane is okay to use, can I combine silane and Reliax luting cement? Thank you so much for your help. And this is a long one, so I'll pass this on to you.
Well, thank you. I have my short-term memory, not what it used to be. And Robert, yeah, this comes up a lot. This is probably, I would say, the most frequently answered question that we get here on Chairside Life, or the most frequently asked question, hopefully the most frequently answered. And so let me go through your questions one by one. What are the frequency of Bruxer crowns coming off without cleaning with IvaClean and applying the zirconia primers? Well, as I mentioned before on the show, for the first 12 to 18 months that we were placing Bruxer, which includes the time before we actually released it to the public, I placed every one of those crowns with Reliax Luting Plus, as you refer to here, without any pre-cleaning, with sandblasting or IvaClean, and without any zirconia primer as well, because they didn't exist at the time. Z Prime Plus was not on the market, and none of those crowns fell off. Why not? Because actually we film almost everything that we do here, and or take still pictures of it, and as a result, most of our preps are over 3 millimeters long, or tall in height from the gingiva to the occlusal edge of the preparation. And we try to keep the taper, we were taught 8 to 10 degrees in dental school. That really never happens. We see a lot of 25 to 30 degrees. I was trying to keep mine at 10 to 15 degrees. And you can look at a prep and just tell whether or not it's going to be retentive or not, whether or not the whole distal is blown out from the back, or if it's a second molar where there's just 1.5 millimeters sticking up from the free margin of the gingiva. That kind of gut feeling where most of us can look at a prep and say that's retentive and that one's not. Any prep that's retentive is going to be fine, and the Bruxer crown is going to stay on regardless of whether or not you decontaminate it with the IvaClean or the sandblaster, or if you used any of the zirconia primers. The mechanical retention of the cement inside the crown and the connection of the cement, that bond, that 6 to 10 megapascals of Reliax Luting Plus to the dentin is going to be more than enough to hold that on. So really this all only applies to very short clinical crowns, which I'll define as less than 3 millimeters in terms of occlusal height, or something that's really over tapered, say past 30, 35 degrees, something like that. So otherwise you're going to be fine. So you said you were starting to worry about Bruxer crowns debonding. It's actually happening way less than it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago kind of hit its peak. It first started off, and dentists would see one come off, they'd re-cement it. Then I would get a phone call or an email saying, Mike, this Bruxer crown came off, and I'd say, well, put it back on. They'd say, well, this is the 5th time it came off, and that's when we started to realize, wow, there's something different about these than, say, a PFM, for example. And so that was about 2 years ago, and now they've continued to decrease and decrease as the word's gotten out about it. So I don't think you need to unnecessarily worry about it unless you're doing a lot of non-retentive preparations for some reason. Does Reliax Luting Plus cement need the recommended primers such as Z Prime Plus or Monobond Plus? It really doesn't, again, if the prep is adequate. So if the prep's more than 3 millimeters tall and it's not over tapered, it really doesn't need either of those zirconia primers. And you were correct in identifying those. And just to go like one level deeper, Z Prime Plus is in fact a zirconia primer, and it will also work with other metals. Monobond Plus is a zirconia primer, but it also has some ceramic silane in it as well. And so Ivoclar wanted to come out with one bottle that would work for everything. And so Monobond Plus has a zirconia primer and a ceramic silane in it at the same time. Bisco has those two products in two different bottles, and they get slightly higher bond strengths with both of them because they keep them separate, but then you have the convenience of the Monobond Plus and being able to use one product for everything. So you could use either of those with Reliax Luting Plus if you wanted to with Bruxer crowns, but you don't need to if, in fact, you've got adequate retention and the prep's not over tapered. And the third question is, can I use silane instead of the recommended primers for cementing Bruxer crowns? If silane's okay to use, can I combine silane and Reliax Luting cement? Well, silane will not work actually with Bruxer. It needs to be a zirconia primer. So when we say silane, most of us are using that as shorthand for ceramic silane, which we would place on a regular lucite reinforced ceramic like Empress, or maybe a feldspathic porcelain like any of the PFM porcelains or things like that. So that type of silane will not work with Bruxer, and so there's really no need to combine it with Reliax Luting Plus to use it on a Bruxer crown. If you're worried about retention on a Bruxer crown because it's a shorter prep or it's over tapered, you're going to want to decontaminate it after trying, either with sandblasting it or with the IvaClean, and then certainly you can place the Z Prime Plus or the Monobond Plus inside the Bruxer crown and use the Reliax Luting Plus if you wish. And to make it just slightly more complicated, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't, you can also take the crown before you try it in and place, for example, Z Prime Plus on the inside of it, and then try the crown in the mouth. Because of the hydrophobic layer on the outside of the Z Prime Plus, you will not get any saliva underneath that coming in contact with the crown. And so you would try that crown in with the Z Prime Plus already in there, make any adjustments to the contacts and occlusion, and then take it out, and you can just rinse it with water and then go ahead and cement it. That Z Prime Plus that's in there is still going to be fresh and will still bond to the resin component of the resin modified glass ionomer, in this case the Reliax Luting Plus that you alluded to. So if that made it more complicated, I apologize for that last little bit. If you need more clarity, certainly feel free to send me another email, Robert, and I'll clear it up a little bit more. But it's hopefully as simple as I think it sounds these days. If you've got a nice prep, you don't need to worry about any of this stuff, and you can do whatever you want. So congrats on being Megan's selection for the viewer mail of the week. And Megan, what does he receive from you?
Well, Dr. Robert gets, how about, well, we've got, because it was such a great, questions, we've got an option today. We've got this photo, which...
What's going on there?
See, if you look at my face, it's similar if you're familiar with the show The Office.
Right.
The character that Michael Scott plays, blind guy Musqueezy.
Right, good point, yeah.
But I was preparing myself, bracing myself for the marker and the noise that just hits me right in the ear.
Right.
And then
there's another way to do it though. Look at the guy. Look at the other guy on the other side. Look how calm he looks.
I know, but the noise isn't traveling towards you.
Oh, good. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even hear it. And I'm
see how
deaf
that
in my
works?
left ear like an old dog.
Right.
Make that face again for me. Live.
You can't reproduce this.
Really?
Yeah, that's magic that happens just organically.
You will never be an actress. Okay. And what's the other photo?
Gosh, no hope or faith in me. How about this picture?
Look, I can do it. Sort of.
Right, that's...
My shoulder pad. It's the 80s. Why are these so large?
Oh, gosh. Okay, and then we have this photo, which I think would probably be the preferred picture to send Dr. Chang. But just us smiling on set.
That's nice.
Yeah. So
you know what else I'd also like to give him, because it's a Bruxer question?
What?
A Bruxer BUR kit.
That would be awesome.
You know what I don't see sitting down here?
What?
Oh, are you reaching for it?
Yep, why don't you do it?
I almost fell out of the chair last time I did it.
Careful, watch, it may be good.
It became the survey says, whoa, congratulations, I have found it. It's the Bruxer Adjustment and Polishing Kit. And since I know that you're doing Bruxer crowns, Robert, you're going to find that they are actually easier to polish than traditional ceramic restorations. And that's why there are only 2 polishing cups in here instead of 3 like we used to have for traditional ceramics. You're going to find that these burrs with the blue stripe on the shank have been zirconia optimized. They'll actually work really well on Emax as well. So these same burrs, which are going to adjust Bruxer and Emax, are also the best way to cut off both those crowns if, in fact, you find yourself needing to cut one off. And if you practice long enough, you're going to find yourself having to cut one off either from yourself or either that's another crown that another dentist somewhere in the U.S. placed, and now you're going to have to cut it off. And so these burrs can really save you in situations like that.
Nice. What a great prize.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. 2 pictures and some burrs. That's fantastic.
No, I think we're just going to send him the one picture. He doesn't want the picture of me with the crazy eyes. See, I did it right there. I can be an actress.
And now
watch out, Hollywood.
That. You can, exactly. I'm pretty sure he wants both of them.
Nope.
Or just the horrible one.
Nope.
I don't look that good in the other one.
Oh,
but regardless. All right, we'll argue.
Anyways,
we'll
can we
argue
go to the
about
news,
it at
please?
lunch. Yes.
Okay. A San Francisco man is charged with killing a man and wounding the victim's brother over a missing gold teeth grill, according to prosecutors. Authorities say the 19-year-old kicked down a bedroom door and shot and killed a 24-year-old man and then injured his 20-year-old brother. The victim threw a 2-year-old girl out of harm's way and tried to shield his brother before being shot to death. The district attorney says the shooter was upset because his gold dental jewelry was missing. They found a gold grill in the home's garage, but it's unclear whether the victim had taken it. The man pleaded not guilty and is being held at $4 million bail.
Wow. Over grills.
Over a grill.
Over a grill. I saw Kanye wearing one the other night when he
They're
was
all
on.
wearing them.
Yeah, not only on the BBC interview, but then he was on when he was on Jimmy Kimmel's show. He still had the grill on, and it was really odd because it was on the lower, and it made it kind of more difficult to speak. And I get gold in the ears, and I get gold, around the neck and other places. But I don't know. Call me old, call me white, call me out of it, call me deaf in the left ear. But I just don't. I get like certain piercings. I mean, I don't get them, but I understand them. And this one, though's a tricky one. But I will say this: the city where that happened, Antioch. I'm talking to you, Antioch. I've spent enough time there because my almost sister-in-law lives there, and I've seen some scary stuff go down in and around Antioch, and that was just in the drive-through of the Jack in the Box. And I can see this kind of going down, in this area of town. But still, the fact that it was all related to this grill. And I'm getting the feeling that we've made a couple, for people who wanted them, but we never have used actual gold.
Right.
Because they would cost upwards of $4,000.
Sure.
Like that gold partial we showed on one of the Case of the Weeks. So hopefully this whole shooting and all this violence did not take place over something that was just non-precious gold-plated like we used to do the inside of our PFMs.
And how sad for that innocent little 2-year-old. And the story was saying that it was unclear, that whether the girl was related to the men or why she was there or what was happening. But to have to, obviously, hopefully she won't remember it later on in life at 2. But just to have that little girl there while the people are being shot, and it's a horrible story. But over something so trivial, it's just...
Can't we just all grill along, is my question. Okay.
I think
Anything
it's way
else?
too soon for that joke.
Okay, well, I
yes,
I didn't say that.
Okay. On a lighter note, if you've ever watched an ice hockey game, you know that blood and bruises are commonplace. But it was still shocking to see the Islanders' captain, John Tavares, pull out his own tooth in a recent game against the Chicago Blackhawks. Tavares was hit in the mouth with a puck, and then when he got to the bench, he reached into his mouth and pulled out a tooth, then proceeded to hand it to his trainer. In true hockey fashion, he didn't even miss a shift.
Oh, and that's because hockey players are tough.
Yes.
They'll go in between periods and get sutures. A friend of mine who passed away, but he was an oral surgeon. He was the official team dentist for the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh.
And he would suture people up without anesthetic in between periods, like facial lacerations that he would do it. And so for John Tavares to go in and take out a tooth and hand it, and you can see this online if you Google it. We're not allowed to show it. You might expect a huge production like the Channel 4, NBC National News, or Chairside Live would be able to procure this, but we weren't able to. But you can check it out and watch it. Pretty awesome.
He just kind of reaches in there, wiggles a little bit, and yanks it out, hands it to the trainer, and is just like, whatever. I
know. He missed his calling. My son plays ice hockey, but they're all required to wear full face shields. Sure. That would have never actually happened. They never required the pros to do that. They're not even required to have that clear shield on there as well. And so most of them, Wayne Gretzky's got a huge bridge in the front. It's just part of hockey. The amazing thing is when you look back at the goalies from like 30 years ago, can you imagine playing goalie in the days before there was a goalie mask?
I couldn't imagine playing now. So no, I couldn't imagine it then
well,
either.
Well, now, it glances off of there and it's loud and you get that look like you get all the time right before the beginning of the show.
All the time.
You walk around like that a lot more than you think you do.
Okay.
Expecting loud sounds. I don't know what it is. PTSD perhaps. But it's amazing that those guys would sit and do that without. They just knew they were going to lose teeth, and I think it was almost like a badge of honor in the NHL to lose a tooth or two, especially pulling it out right there on.
Yeah, and as I've mentioned on the show, I grew up actually in the ice hockey rink because my brother played pro and traveled the world actually playing hockey, and so I've been in a hockey rink more times than I could possibly count. And so I've seen injuries like this, but I have never seen somebody actually pull out their tooth. And I can't remember if I've mentioned this on the show before. It escapes me at the moment, but confession session, this girl used to play hockey.
Really?
Yeah, ice hockey, but makes the story even better, on an all-boys team.
Wow. Any footage of this anywhere?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple photographs which are beyond embarrassing because, like I said, growing up in the hockey community, when you take like your team photo, you don't smile. Right. There's no smiling in hockey. maybe it's because they were covering up the fact that they, were
right.
edentulous at this point. But what happened then was, so I thought, okay, well, that's what they do. So in the picture, here I am, this girl with long hair, and I'm just totally not smiling, just mad dogging the camera, trying to be as tough as possible. And I would, if you ask my parents, they will tell you that it's true. I used to get in trouble every game for checking.
Mm-hmm. Really?
It was a non-checking league, of course.
And you were checking.
Yep.
Wow. Well, that explains that really does help to explain all your injuries and scratches and burns and all things that we find all over your body. It's not clumsiness as I originally thought. You're just rough and tumble. And Dennis, if you write in for a viewer mail and you'd like to be considered as the viewer mail of the week, put down just a little PS that I would like my prize to be one of the pictures of Megan playing hockey instead of a picture of her and I sitting at the news desk. And I'll see what I can do. I'll see if we can comply with that.
Horrible.
I might have, who knows, maybe we have access to your old pictures.
I
need to get somebody on the payroll.
Right. I'm going to alert Brandon right now and tell him to keep those pictures on lockdown.
That's a good idea. I'm sure he'll do that. I doubt he wants to humiliate you at all. I know that would never happen between a husband and wife. All right. Well, thank you, Megan. That'll about wrap it up for this edition of Chairside Live. On behalf of myself, Megan, the CSL crew, and everybody here at the lab, I want to thank you for your time and your continued commitment to quality dentistry.
We'll see you next time.
I'm Dr. Michael DeTola.
And I'm wearing pants. Sorry, go ahead. Start over. Feel.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Actually, the one I want
Oh, just
is this
Little
one.
Italy?
What's that thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, I know. You can try to get by, but you're going to get trapped. Oh, hell, that's the worst noise ever.